Welcome back, America. This is America First with me, Sebastian Gorka, on the newest national radio station, radio program across the nation on more than 120 stations of the Salem Radio Network, coming to you from the ReliefFactor.com studios with a guest I'm very excited to have Skyping in with us today, none other than the creator of Dilbert, the man who is Chief Strategy Officer for Interface.wenhub.com, Scott Adams. Follow him on Twitter at Scott Adams Says. I don't drink coffee. If I did right now, we would be doing a simultaneous sip. Scott, are you there?
I'm here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. You are now a legend in social media, an individual who has been unfairly, I would say, tarred with the brush of being an unthinking pro-Trump supporter. You come to politics today with the professional eye of a person who's not just very successful in the business world. You have training in economics, you have an MBA from Berkeley, but also a trained hypnotist. Am I correct?
Correct. Yeah, I've been studying persuasion in all of its various forms for decades as part of what I do for a living. You know, if you're a writer, it helps to know how to persuade. So that's what I learned.
Indeed, it does. And it also helps if you're a politician. I love your videos. I just watched the last one you did with regards to what happened last Friday, who caved, who did not cave. And you have a fascinating argument. You say the idea that it's Donald Trump versus Nancy Pelosi, which is how everybody is reporting it. And the question is, who caved, who didn't cave? You say that's completely fallacious. It's not even about the wall. Scott Adams, what happened last Friday and what was the debate really about?
Well, as you mentioned, I have a background in economics. And one of the things you learn when you study economics and when you study business is how to make accurate comparisons. If you're comparing the wrong things, you're always going to get the wrong answer. So you have to start with, what am I comparing? And to me, the border security question should be a comparison between Donald Trump as president versus what you would have had if he had not been president. In other words, a President Hillary Clinton. So the real question is, will a President Trump get more? Will a reasonable person look at whatever comes out of this working group, whatever the ultimate outcome is? Will a reasonable person say, yes, that's a lot more border security than we would have gotten under a President Hillary Clinton? Now, you'll never know for sure, but that's the way an economist would compare things. They would say you had two choices. At the start, both choices are imaginary because you're talking about the future. You're imagining what one will do versus the other. Now that we've made a choice, one of them is real, but still the appropriate rational comparison is to what it would have been. And what it would have been is President Hillary Clinton and probably a little less or maybe a lot less border security.
So by the president giving this 3-week window or moratorium, he's shifted the focus onto what border security should look like. Allegedly, the experts, the engineers are meeting with the people on Capitol Hill. And then, as a nation, we're focusing on the question of what the best solution is, which is what we should have done all along, no?
Yeah. And the funniest thing about this is that what the anti-Trumpers are saying is Trump will never be able to sell to his base something that isn't something like a big concrete wall.
Right.
And here's me selling it to his base. Allow me to be the salesperson.
Go ahead.
What I originally wanted was a big old wall. We talked to the experts and the engineers, and they said that for the amount we're willing to spend, we can give you something that's more effective for the money spent. You want to accept something that's better than what I promised? Or should I go back to my original promise, which was inefficient and not quite as good, according to the experts? It should be literally the simplest sale anybody ever made, coming from the mouth of perhaps one of the best salespeople we've ever seen, President Trump.
So do you want the Ford Pinto or do you want the Ferrari? That's a hard pitch, right? Do you want the
Yeah, who's going to be arguing against the smartest way to spend the money to secure the border? And I'm sure some people will, but it's such a poor, irrational, it's just such a weak argument. I can't imagine that his base will say, no, we don't want the better solution for the thing we want. Who says that?
Nobody who's acting rationally. In the couple of minutes we have left in this segment, and you've been very graciously, you've graciously agreed to hang on for 2 segments. What is it about Donald Trump? What are the key things that make him so good at persuading or getting people to buy into his message? What would you say are the 2 biggest issues that he's really good at?
Well, first of all, we have to say he's primarily persuading his side, and
Yes.
and that's the way of the world now. People don't really even try to persuade the other team. It's impossible. People have taken sides. The media guarantees that we stay in our camps. But given that President Trump has persuaded something like 90% plus of his team to be on his side, that's pretty remarkable. That's probably about as good as you can do in our modern world. First thing he does is he absorbs all the attention. You can't persuade unless you have attention.
Good point.
Nobody gets attention like he does. And secondly, he uses very common, well-known methods. He makes things visual.
Yes.
He talks about a wall. Instead of saying border security, he talks about a wall, which was great persuasion. But now we're in the detailed implementation, and now you need to put a little finer point on that and decide what's the best way to secure the border. But persuasion-wise, talking about it as a wall was actually very effective because it's visual, and our visual sense overwhelms everything else. He's good at repeating things. He's good at simplifying. And if you do those things right, and also he's good at using fear. Now, you could argue the morality of that, and maybe that's going too far, and I think you could make a good case for that. But you can't make a case that it's not persuasive to scare people.
Right.
You certainly can make a case that it went too far, it has some downside. I wouldn't take that argument. But he does the biggest things, fear when it's necessary, or it's appropriate to the situation, let's say. Visual, simplicity, repeat, take all the attention. If you do those things, you're gonna persuade.
In the last few seconds we have left in this segment, what's your expectation? Mine is intransigence on behalf of the Democrats. They're not going to sign into anything that even looks like a physical barrier, and then a kind of deadlock again on February the 15th. Am I being unreasonable? What's Scott Adams' take?
Well, I would say the odds that we get something like a solution in 3 weeks is probably vanishingly small. But we will probably move forward, meaning that we should produce something the public can look at. And here's the key. As long as it's a bunch of people making decisions behind closed doors and simply telling us in general ways whether it was good or bad, no progress can be made. There's no way this could be solved with that model. Until the public can look directly at the engineer's work, can't get there.
Yep, I think that's very reasonable. You're listening to Scott Adams. Follow him at Scott Adams Says on Twitter. I'm Sebastian Gorka, former strategist to the president on the newest national radio show in America, America First on the Salem Radio Network. Follow us at Seb Gorka on Twitter and live streaming at sebgorka.com. Back with Scott Adams momentarily from the ReliefFactor.com studios of the Salem Radio Network.